Hi, I'm Shannon Wilkie, owner of the Shine Advocacy Group, and today I'm so excited to talk to an old friend from higher education, Leslie Johnson. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. We're in Arizona, so it's kind of warm and beautiful, and we were just talking, you're in Michigan.
Yep,
Well,
Michigan, we had a few nice spring days and now we're back to cold, so.
yeah, well, you'll wish you were not here in the summer, so it will be worth it. So tell us a little bit about your professional background. We're so excited to kind of zoom in and talk to you and get some advisement for our older clients who are thinking of college. And so give us a little background on your work that you do.
Yeah, I'm currently at Michigan State University in our disability office, which is the Resource Center for Persons with Disabilities. It's a mouthful, so we call it RCPD for short. There's always acronyms in higher ed, but in my role, I'm the assistant director and specializing in the area of assistive technology and accessibility. Um, Prior to that, I was one of our disability specialists who worked with our students with mental health and psychiatric disabilities. And I've been at MSU for about 5 years, but then prior to that, I was at a university in Phoenix working with you, Shannon, for a few years. So
Yep.
I've got quite a few years in higher ed disability services.
You sure do. And like you said, there's so many acronyms, and that's not just in higher ed. K-12 has a mouthful too. So let's start by telling everyone watching this, and when I worked in higher ed, we often were called the Disability Services Office, or DSO. I've heard colleges say DSR. I don't even know what that stands for. So give me your acronym again. So if someone's looking at a college, they want to talk to someone about accessibility or disability services, what are some of the names of the offices that you've seen?
There are so many different names. It could be accessibility services. Our disability specialists are called ability access specialists. So it could be, I've seen like access services. So I think the best way to go about it is if you are looking at a college and went to find the disability office, to go to their webpage, and every college or university's webpage typically has a search box, and just search disability and you'll usually get to the disability services office. And a lot of times it's in like a student services, or sometimes within health services, but it's going to be a student service type area that it's under.
And I think the universal language would be disability services at college.
Yeah.
So if you search for that, you should be good. But yeah, it might be called 3 or 4 different things. And it seems like the schools change. I think even when we worked together, we changed what we called ourselves a few times. So I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're always trying to change the language a little bit, but yeah, disability services is a good standard language to try.
Okay, so now you guys know what to look for if you're thinking of help. Your struggling students, that's what I call our group. You had help in K through 12. Maybe you had a 504 plan, maybe you had an IEP. And I just spoke about this in one of my other videos about your school might be telling you that there's no help at college. And Leslie and I are here to say that's not true. We both had many years in college with actual students, so there was help at college. And as Leslie said, her title is Associate Director of Assistive Technology.
Yep, assistive technology.
Yeah. So assistive technology is another acronym. It's often called AT. So give us a little background on what assistive technology is. Some people may not know that term.
Yeah, so assistive technology could be a wide variety of things. So basically it's going to be, any sort of a tool, app, device, some sort of an aid that someone with a disability would use to help them make some aspect of their life or access something a little bit easier. So there's a lot of tools and it's usually more technology based, but there's a lot that are like specifically built and designed for people with disabilities, whether it's like screen readers, things like that. But then there's a lot of, we typically promote a lot of just mainstream technology. So just technology that any average person would use. I know we're a Microsoft school, so like Microsoft OneNote is a really great note-taking app that we really promote a lot. And that's something that, can be, referred to as assistive technology, because it can really help people with disabilities, but it can also really help everybody. So, and that sometimes too, especially helps at the college level, because the students are using the same types of things everybody's using, and they're not having to use some specialized equipment or tool.
Right. So assistive technology can help. And there are some kids as young as, I think we were just talking before, junior high will sometimes start using it, and definitely through high school. So let's take an example. If a student has a written expression disability and they have difficulty getting thoughts from their mind to paper, they have a bunch of different technologies they can use starting young. And even in the, I guess the first phase would be typing and speech to text. So I'm talking with my hands so much, but speech to text, everyone uses it now on their phones to text. And there are so many different programs that some are free, right? And some cost, about $100. But so for anyone listening, if the school is going to, and I won't speak to your school, but for K-12, if the school is going to provide the assistive technology as an accommodation, or use it as part of one of the services, then the school would pay for it. Is that the same in higher ed currently?
Not always. So we definitely, different colleges and universities will have, some different programs that are available for students. And that's definitely something to look into if you're looking at different colleges or universities, like what technology do they offer students already? At MSU, we do provide some different technologies that are through campus-wide license. So everyone on campus can access them. Like a text-to-speech program that would help, read an ebook or electronic text out loud for students. So that's something that we provide as on a campus-wide license. So it's going to vary a little bit. And then again, we also we promote a lot of free or low cost apps and tools nowadays. There's so many different apps that you can use that are free or low cost, but we will also partner with our local vocational rehab agencies as well. In Michigan, it's, MRS, the Michigan Rehab Services. I know every state probably calls it a little bit differently, but we have a close connection with them, and we can help get students in contact with them, and they can help sometimes purchase technology that students need at that level. So there's a lot of different ways to go about getting it if it's not something that we don't provide, but that'll be something that varies a little bit.
Yeah, and what I've seen, if I'm working, when we've done some coaching with students getting ready for college, sometimes the mindset is if it costs money, it's better. And with some of the programs, the students didn't use them because they were so robust that they didn't learn them. And if the operating system has the program built in and they've already are using it, it's not going to take up any more space on their device. It seems like it's a good first place to start. So it's just a matter of knowing what's out there. And that's why we're so grateful that there's experts like you to help the students. So if you're watching this, you're getting ready for college, Leslie had some really great advice in a Facebook group we were both in, and that's what kind of stemmed this conversation. So Leslie, if we together had to tell people watching this, what's 5 things that they can do to get ready to transition from the IEP or 504 to college? So maybe their junior, senior year of high school, what are some things we would tell them?
Definitely start early in preparing, and as you're touring, campuses, take time to also tour and meet with the disability office. So they should be willing to meet with you and talk with them about what services they offer. Every college university, again, is going to offer different levels of services, and they'll all provide accommodations, but they'll provide them in a little bit different way. So make sure that they have what you'll need. And a lot of people are always under the impression like, oh, I want to go to a smaller school because it will be, easier to navigate. But again, like a larger school, like MSU is very large, but we have a lot of supports and services. So definitely thinking about the whole picture. How does campus feel? What is housing like? What is dining like? I mean, there's so many aspects that go into it. So definitely take time in touring and meeting people. I would also say really start preparing, and this would be for, I think it's for the parent and the student, but start preparing the student to be a little bit more independent. And it's also for the parent, because sometimes it's really hard to like step back a little bit, because the parent has been that advocate for so long and they've played that role. So it'll take time to, take a step back and let the student really take lead on those pieces, but it will really help them so much once they are at college and having to do a lot of those advocacy pieces for themselves.
I can help you with that. So we often add self-advocacy type goals to an IEP. When kids turn 16, they have like a transition plan on their IEP, and then we start to think about what their next steps are, and we can self-advocacy, whether they're going to college, trade school, job, whatever. It's not going to hurt, right? Because they're going to turn
Absolutely.
18 either way. So
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely. And it just like you definitely see the difference. The students and that we work with, that their parents have like sort of encouraged that like independence and self-advocacy for it, they do so much better because they just have like been like taught that and practice it. It all takes practice, and it's just another thing that you have to teach your child and student. So let's see, I don't know how many things I've talked about, but then it's also
what
just
about evaluations? I think you had mentioned the evaluations, and I
yeah.
tell families that a lot as well, because there's no
Yeah, so
evaluations at, well, most colleges, any that I've experienced, they will not do an evaluation. The law is different. So if you're a client of mine, or if you've gotten an IEP and the school's evaluated, that does not happen at college.
exactly. Yeah. Like at MSU, we can help you get a lower cost evaluation, but it's still going to be costly. So it's always better when you're still in high school to ask for a new updated evaluation, especially if it had been a while, because the college is going to want one usually that everybody's a little bit differently, but if you get one within the last 5 years, that's usually a good time frame. It has to be, your documentation has to be within 5 years old. And so if junior, senior of high school, you're able to get an updated evaluation that will be the most accurate and relevant, and then you can use that for college, because the college that the disability office will need documentation that verifies a disability and speaks to the disability impacts that that the student has. So it's very important to get the school to do that for you.
Yeah, and there's, what's interesting is a lot of, nationally, I think back in the day when I was in higher ed, it was 3 years. And so it's good, it's getting more liberal. But what happened, I think the 3 years comes from, there's a 3-year reevaluation. Anytime a student has an IEP and they have evaluations, if they're on it, they are eligible to have a reevaluation every 3 years. Make sure, families, that you use that right. And as Leslie's saying, and I 100% agree, if your students in the 10th, 11th, 12th grade and the school is saying you don't need to evaluate because they're all set, they already have their IP, you want that data, you want that evaluation. It's going to save you quite a bit of money down the road for in your next endeavors in higher ed. And not only that, you want to see, are these accommodations and services still working, and has anything changed significantly? So definitely
Yes,
take that right of your evaluation. And then I think the last
absolutely.
thing that is two last things. Let's talk about registering. So when we do coaching, a lot of times students will be like, we're good. We had such a great IEP. We've grown so much. We're good. We had a huge need. We maybe have like a learning disability and ADHD, but everything's in control. So we're not going to register until something goes wrong. So I'm guessing your team gets a lot of those calls. Tell us some advice on that.
We absolutely do get a lot of those calls, and usually it comes around midterm time, the first semester. So my advice is always, if you have had especially if you've had an IEP or 504 plan in the past, it's always good to get registered with the disability office. The big difference too with college is you can get registered, you can set up accommodations, and then you can never use them if you don't want to. So the student will really be the one that initiates that process if they want to use accommodations or not. So if you have the accommodations already in place, then if something comes up, you can use them. But accommodations would not be retroactive, meaning they don't go back to cover something that would have already happened. So it's always good to be prepared and proactive and and get things set up, and then choose to use it. And again, you can choose to use it for maybe just a math class, maybe just a science class, not all your classes. So you really have a much more control in how those accommodations are used. But definitely starting early with that is best. You know, as soon as you're admitted into a college, you can start that process and get registered and talk about accommodations, and remembering too that it could be accommodations for housing, it could be accommodations for dining, transportation. Are you allowed to have a car? Will you need a car to get to appointments? Will there be a medical provider in the area? There's a lot more to think about that takes that early planning. So
Yep, yep, I agree. And then your last bit of advice in the group was the time, sometimes the hindrance. And I see this starts in probably ninth grade. One of our most common calls, to the point of us now having 2 executive function type coaches, is, you know, time management, task initiation, really organizing the day. And what I always tell clients is, to access your academics, you have to be able to schedule them, study skills. You know, if you have extra time, schedule that out. And that has, the buzzword of executive function has always been time management and organization deficits do. I mean, when we worked together, we must have serviced thousands and thousands of students, and that was one of the biggest growth areas. So you're still seeing that.
yep, that is still like the biggest area of struggle, is those executive functioning skills across the board. And especially to the first few years in college, because it's very different. They're used to being in high school, which is like very structured. Like, I go to school at this time to this time, and then I have, like, you know, activities after school. But in college, you could have a class in the morning and then have like a big, like, 4-hour gap and then another class. So it's very easy to just completely lose track of time, especially like if you have a 4-hour break in classes. What are you doing with that time? Are you using it to the best of your ability? So time management and planning is something that we talk a lot about. And one of the strategies that I use a lot is like thinking of, you know, you're in college, like that's your full-time job. So if you were working a full-time job, you'd work 8 to 5 or 9 to 6, you know, schedule a time and then work on fitting all of your school, like your work, into that time. So
Right.
You have your classes, you would plot out, we have an hourly calendar, has every day of the week and then has every hour. So you'd like plan out your classes when you're in class. And then, okay, well, you know, you have a math homework assignment due every week the same day. So plan a set time to do that. So really just get very detailed and schedule yourself to do those things that you know you'll have to do, and schedule time to study or do homework for each class. So it really can help to plan that out. And then if you're done at, you know, 5 o'clock every day, then you can have fun, because it's definitely still important to have fun and be in activities and socialize as well. So
yeah, even if it's in the snow in Michigan right now. But I think out of the 5, that's what I would say. If a parent's watching this, or an older teen, college age student, it's never too late to get your executive function skills strengthened. It is not, executive function are lagging skills. They can grow by getting systems in place. And when I was joking around my planner, like, I wish I had a planner in college, because I would have been such a more productive student. I didn't know what executive function was back in the day. And, you know, there are not a lot of classes to teach people how to have a planner. I rarely run into a high school student that knows how to schedule their day intrinsically. Whether it's technology, I've seen more success with the paper planner. I'm old though, so that's, you know, that's going to be what I say.
no,
But
I would, and I was recently talking with a group of students about this, and they still all prefer a paper planner as well, just because it's easier to manage and write. And the tip that I would give is have a paper planner, but then use a digital, like,
right.
timer on your phone to look at the planner, because so often students will complete their planner but then forget it. So set, like, you know, morning, afternoon, and evening reminders to look at your planner if you need to.
Yeah, I agree. And so if you're working to prep for college, make sure that it's on your 504 IEP in high school, to have your agenda checks and to get those systems in place. So by the time you get there, you have a system that you're already using and comfortable with. So those assignments that you do actually get turned in. So great advice,
Exactly.
Leslie. I'm so happy that we got to connect, and thank you for speaking to all of our older clients about next steps that really would be for college or anywhere in life. Those executive function and self-advocacy skills are so important. So I will post below this the link for an example for a disability services office, the link to Leslie's at MSU, and then
Yep.
assistive technology. Maybe we'll pop some resources in there too if you're thinking that high school or college age assistive technology may help you. So
Yeah, and you can link to our assistive technology page. I update it quite often with different tools, and it's actually broken down by the different like executive functioning areas. So like technology to help
awesome.
reading, technology to help writing. So you could definitely use that as a place to reference, and I'm always happy to answer questions.
All right. Well, we really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, so thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
All right.
you.
Take care.
Bye.